I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, 34, and as one of the youngest board-certified plastic surgeons to ever reach $20 million in revenue, I thought I'd seen every possible request walk through my Manhattan clinic doors. Then the Whitmore family arrived with their twin daughters, and what they asked me to do to one of them made my hand shake so violently I couldn't hold my consultation notes. They wanted me to deliberately disfigure their prettier twin to match her sister's birth defect, not to help the affected child, but to make them equal so the family could finally love them the same. The psychological evaluation I secretly ordered revealed a family dynamic so sick and manipulative that I immediately called Child Protective Services. What happened next will show you just how far some parents will go to control their children's lives. Like this video, if you believe children deserve better than their parents' twisted expectations. The framed Harvard Medical School diploma, hanging behind my desk, has witnessed countless consultations, but none like what I'm about to tell you. That diploma represents 15 years of relentless dedication, medical school, residency, fellowship, and the grueling climb to build Manhattan's most prestigious cosmetic surgery practice. When I opened Mitchell Aesthetic Surgery at 28, people said I was too young, too ambitious. They were wrong. By 34, I'd performed over 3,000 procedures, earned board certifications in both plastic surgery and dermatology, and built a client roster that reads like a who's who of New York's elite actresses, socialites, business executives. They all trusted me with their most vulnerable moments. My practice philosophy was simple: enhance natural beauty, restore confidence, and never compromise ethics for profit. I specialized in reconstructive work for burn victims and cancer survivors alongside cosmetic procedures. Every consultation began with the same question: how can I help you feel like the best version of yourself? The Upper East Side clinic I'd designed reflected this philosophy: warm lighting, comfortable seating, and an atmosphere that felt more like a luxury spa than a medical facility. My staff of 12 included 2 nurse practitioners, a patient coordinator, and support staff who understood that transformation was about more than just physical change. I'd handled difficult cases before: the socialite who wanted her teenage daughter's nose fixed to match her own, the executive who demanded surgery to look exactly like a movie star, the woman who wanted to remove all traces of her ethnic heritage from her face. I'd refused them all, explaining that my job was to help people become their best selves, not to fulfill someone else's vision of perfection. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for what walked through my door that Tuesday morning in October. The Whitmore family seemed normal enough when my receptionist announced their arrival. A standard consultation for what I assumed would be reconstructive work for one of their daughters. I remember adjusting my white coat, checking my appearance in the mirror, and walking toward the consultation room with the same confidence I'd carried into thousands of meetings before. The diploma on my wall, my stellar reputation, my years of experience, none of it would matter for what came next. Success in plastic surgery isn't just about technical skill. It's about reading people, understanding their motivations, and recognizing when someone's request crosses the line from enhancement to harm. I'd always prided myself on that intuition, on my ability to spot the red flags that other surgeons might miss. That morning, I thought I was meeting with parents who wanted to help their child. Instead, I was about to encounter a level of twisted manipulation that would shake me to my core and force me to confront the darkest side of human nature. The appointment scheduler entry for 10:30 a.m. read simply: Whitmore Family Consultation, Reconstructive Evaluation for Minor. Nothing unusual there. I see families regularly, especially when dealing with pediatric cases that require parental consent and emotional support. Janet Whitmore entered first. A woman in her early 50s with perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothing that screamed old money. Her husband Robert followed, tall and distinguished in a navy suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Between them walked 2 16-year-old girls, who couldn't have been more different despite being identical twins. Emma Whitmore carried herself with quiet confidence. She had striking features, high cheekbones, bright green eyes, and flawless skin that seemed to glow with natural health. Her posture was straight, her movements graceful, and when she looked at me, there was an intelligence in her gaze that immediately caught my attention. Lily Whitmore was Emma's mirror image in bone structure. But where Emma radiated confidence, Lily seemed to shrink into herself. A port wine birthmark covered the left side of her face, extending from her temple down to her jawline in deep purple-red patches. But it wasn't the birthmark that struck me. I'd worked with countless patients with similar conditions. It was the way Lily held herself, hunched and defensive, as if she expected the world to hurt her. Dr. Mitchell, Janet said, extending a manicured hand. Thank you for seeing us on such short notice. This is my husband Robert, and our daughters Emma and Lily. Robert's handshake was firm, his smile practiced. Doctor, we've heard wonderful things about your work. We're hoping you can help our family with a rather unique situation. I gestured for them to sit in the comfortable chairs arranged around my consultation table. Emma immediately took the seat closest to the window, while Lily chose the chair furthest from everyone else. The parents positioned themselves between their daughters, a formation that seemed oddly territorial. Tell me how I can help, I said, settling into my chair with the consultation notepad I used for every initial meeting. Janet leaned forward, her voice taking on a rehearsed quality. Lily has struggled with self-esteem issues her entire life because of her birthmark. Emma, as you can see, doesn't have the same challenge. We've tried therapy, support groups, even considered traditional reconstructive surgery for Lily. I nodded, making notes. This sounded like a straightforward case. Parents wanting to help their daughter feel more confident. There are several excellent treatment options for port wine stains. Laser therapy has come a long way, and in some cases, we can achieve remarkable improvement. Actually, Robert interrupted, we've explored those options, but we've come to a different conclusion about how to help our daughters. Something in his tone made me look up from my notes. Emma had gone rigid in her chair, her hands clenched in her lap. Lily stared at the floor, as if trying to disappear entirely. What kind of conclusion? I asked carefully. Without my knowledge, my phone had been recording the entire consultation, a habit I'd developed after a malpractice scare years earlier. That recording would later become crucial evidence, capturing every chilling word of what came next. Robert cleared his throat and leaned back in his chair with the confidence of a man accustomed to getting his way. Dr. Mitchell, we've realized that trying to fix Lily isn't the answer. The problem isn't that she's different, it's that her sister isn't. I felt my pen pause mid-sentence. I'm sorry, I don't follow. Janet picked up where her husband left off, her voice matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather. Emma has always been the prettier twin, the one who gets attention, opportunities, praise. It's created an imbalance in our family that's been devastating for Lily. And for our family unit as a whole, Robert added, we've struggled to love them equally when society constantly reminds us that one is beautiful and the other is ... marked. The way he said marked made my stomach turn, but I maintained my professional composure. Many families with children who have different needs find ways to. We want you to give Emma a birthmark, Janet interrupted. One that matches Lily's exactly. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at her, certain I'd misunderstood. Excuse me, we want you to surgically create a port wine stain on Emma's face that matches her sister's, same size, same location, same appearance. Robert spoke as if he were ordering lunch. That way, they'll be equal. We'll finally be able to love them the same amount. Emma shot up from her chair so fast it nearly toppled over. Are you insane? Her voice cracked with horror and disbelief. You want to disfigure me because you can't figure out how to love your own daughter? Sit down, Emma. Janet's voice turned ice cold. This isn't about you. This is about our family's healing. This is about your sick need for control. Emma's hands were shaking. Lily doesn't need to be fixed, and I don't need to be broken. Lily finally looked up, and what I saw in her eyes broke my heart. Not surprise, not shock, resignation. As if this conversation was the inevitable conclusion to 16 years of psychological manipulation. Lily, honey, Robert said in a cyclic, sweet tone, tell Dr. Mitchell how you feel about this solution. Lily's voice was barely a whisper. If Emma looked like me, maybe Mom and Dad would stop being disappointed in me. See? Janet smiled triumphantly. Lily understands. This is what's best for everyone. I realized my hands were shaking so violently I couldn't hold my consultation notes steady. In 15 years of practice, I'd never encountered anything so fundamentally twisted, so psychologically damaging to everyone involved. This is not a medical procedure, I managed to say. What you're describing would be deliberate disfigurement of a healthy child. We're her parents. Robert's voice hardened. We know what's best for our daughters. No, Emma said, tears streaming down her face. You know what's best for your twisted need to have identical damaged children, instead of just loving the ones you have. The room fell silent except for Emma's quiet sobs and the sound of my own rapid heartbeat. I needed to get out of that room before I said something that might make the situation worse for these girls. I need a moment to consult some references, I said, standing on unsteady legs. Please wait here. As I walked toward the door, I heard Janet's voice behind me. Doctor, we're prepared to pay whatever it takes. I barely made it to my private bathroom before the nausea hit. Gripping the marble countertop, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, pale, shaken, horrified. The crumpled tissue I would later find in the wastebasket, stained with mascara, from tears I didn't remember shedding, became a tangible reminder of the moment my world shifted. 15 years in medicine, 15 years of seeing humanity at its most vulnerable. I'd reconstructed faces after car accidents, helped burn victims reclaim their lives, worked with children born with severe deformities. I thought I understood the full spectrum of human suffering and the lengths people would go to heal. But this wasn't about healing. This was about destruction dressed up as love. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I turned on the cold water and splashed my face, trying to process what I'd just witnessed. These parents, these people who were supposed to protect their children, wanted me to mutilate one daughter because they couldn't figure out how to love the other. The worst part wasn't even the request itself. It was Lily's resignation, the way she accepted their twisted logic as if it made perfect sense. How long had they been poisoning her mind? How many years of being told she was the problem, the one who needed to be fixed, the reason their family couldn't be happy? And Emma, brave, defiant Emma, standing up to parents who clearly saw her beauty as a burden rather than a gift. The look of horror in her eyes when she realized what they wanted to do to her. The way she immediately understood that this wasn't about helping Lily but about controlling both of them. I thought about other difficult cases I'd handled. The mother who wanted her son's ears pinned back because she thought they made him look stupid. The father who demanded his daughter's nose be fixed to look more European. I'd refused those cases too, but they seemed almost reasonable compared to this. This family wasn't seeking enhancement or reconstruction. They were seeking destruction in the name of equality. They wanted me to create trauma, to inflict harm, to solve their psychological dysfunction by spreading it to both children. Instead of healing it in one dot, my reflection looked back at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Genuine fear. Not for my practice or my reputation, but for those two girls sitting in my consultation room with parents who had completely lost sight of what love actually meant. I needed to pull myself together. I needed to get back in there and find a way to protect Emma and Lily without making things worse. But first, I needed to stop shaking long enough to think clearly about what came next. Taking one more look at my pale reflection, I straightened my white coat, wiped away the last traces of tears, and prepared to face a situation no medical school had ever prepared me for. Those girls needed an advocate, and right now, I was the only one they had. When I returned to the consultation room, I carried with me a standard psychological assessment form, a document I rarely used but one that would prove crucial in documenting what I was about to uncover. The form contained questions designed to evaluate family dynamics, decision-making processes, and the psychological well-being of patients and their support systems. I apologize for the delay, I said, settling back into my chair with renewed composure. Before we discuss any potential procedures, I need to complete a comprehensive evaluation. This is standard protocol for all cases involving minors. Robert's jaw tightened slightly. Is that really necessary? We've already made our decision. I'm afraid it is, I replied, clicking my pen. Medical ethics require me to ensure that any procedure is in the patient's best interest and that all family members are psychologically prepared for the outcome. Janet shifted uncomfortably. What kind of questions? Standard ones. I turned to Emma first. Emma, can you tell me in your own words why you're here today? Emma's eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of hope as if she recognized that someone was finally asking for her perspective. My parents think that if I look damaged like my sister, they'll be able to love us equally. That's not how we phrased it, Janet snapped. But that's what you meant, Emma shot back. You've spent 16 years making Lily feel like she's broken, and now you want to break me too instead of just learning how to love her. I made careful notes, watching the family dynamics unfold. Lily, how do you feel about your parents' proposal? Lily's response came in a monotone voice that chilled me. If Emma looked like me, maybe I wouldn't be the ugly one anymore. You're not ugly, sweetheart, I said gently. Your birthmark doesn't define your worth or beauty. That's easy for you to say, Robert interrupted. You don't have to live with the stares, the comments, the way people treat her differently. And you think creating 2 children who experience that treatment is better than teaching one child to be confident, despite it. Janet leaned forward aggressively. You don't understand our family dynamic, doctor. We've tried everything. Therapy, positive reinforcement, building Lily's self-esteem. Nothing works. What specific therapies have you tried? I asked, pen poised. There was a pause. Well, we haven't actually tried formal therapy, Robert admitted. But we've talked to her about it. Emma let out a bitter laugh. Talked to her about it? You mean lectured her about being grateful for what she has, while constantly comparing her to me? Emma, that's enough. Janet's voice was sharp with warning, but Emma wasn't stopping. Do you want to know what they really do, Dr. Mitchell? They introduced Lily as our daughter with the birthmark, and me as our beautiful daughter. They display my school photos on the mantle and hide hers in a drawer. They buy me expensive clothes and tell Lily it's wasteful to spend money on someone who won't photograph well. I was scribbling furiously, documenting every revelation. Is this accurate, Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore? We've been protecting Lily from disappointment, Janet said defensively. We don't want her to develop unrealistic expectations about her appearance by destroying her self-worth. I asked. By being realistic, Robert replied coldly. Lily will never be conventionally beautiful. It's better that she accepts that now. Lily flinched as if she'd been slapped. Emma reached over and grabbed her sister's hand. What about Lily's other qualities? I continued. Her intelligence, talents, personality. Another pause. Well, she's adequate, Janet said. Adequate. Emma's voice rose. Lily has a 4.0 GPA. She writes poetry, speaks 3 languages, and volunteers at the children's hospital. But you never mention any of that because you're too busy being embarrassed by how she looks. I watched as Lily's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of shock, as if hearing her accomplishments listed aloud was a revelation even to her. Those achievements don't change the fundamental problem, Robert said dismissively. People will always see the birthmark first, only if you teach them to, I replied, setting down my pen. Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, what you're describing isn't a medical problem. It's a family therapy issue. Your daughters don't need surgery. You need to learn how to parent children who aren't identical. As the consultation continued, Emma pulled out her phone and showed me something that would haunt me for weeks, a series of school photos spanning from kindergarten to junior year. The visual timeline told a story more powerful than any words could convey. In kindergarten, both girls smiled brightly at the camera. Lily's birthmark was there, of course, but her expression was joyful, unguarded. Emma stood close to her sister, their arms around each other. They looked like any other happy twins. By 2nd grade, something had changed. Lily's smile seemed forced, and she had started positioning herself to hide the left side of her face. Emma still smiled, but there was a protective quality to the way she stood near her sister. Tell me about these early years, I said, studying the photos carefully. Emma glanced at her parents, then spoke with quiet determination. When we were little, Lily was actually more outgoing than me. She made friends easily, loved being the center of attention. She used to say her birthmark was her special mark that made her unique. That was before she understood how the world works, Janet interjected. That was before you taught her to be ashamed, Emma corrected. I remember the exact moment everything changed. We were 7, at a school carnival. Lily was excited about getting her face painted, and some other kid pointed at her birthmark and asked what was wrong with her face. I continued flipping through the photos, watching Lily's transformation from confident child to withdrawn teenager. What happened then? Mom grabbed Lily and told her we were leaving. Emma continued. On the way home, she explained that Lily needed to understand her limitations and not put herself in situations where people would stare. We were protecting her, Robert insisted. You were projecting your own discomfort onto her, Emma shot back. From that day forward, you treated her birthmark like a shameful secret instead of just part of who she is. I looked at Lily, who was staring at the photos with an expression I couldn't quite read. Lily, do you remember feeling ashamed before that day? She shook her head slowly. I used to think it looked like a butterfly, she whispered. I named it Scarlet. She named it, I asked, surprised by this revelation. She used to talk to it in the mirror, Emma said softly. She'd tell Scarlett about her day, make up stories about how it was a magical marking that made her special. Janet's face flushed with embarrassment. That's exactly the kind of unrealistic thinking we had to correct. You mean the kind of healthy self-acceptance you systematically destroyed, I said, my professional objectivity slipping slightly. The photos from middle school showed the damage accelerating. Lily had learned to turn her body away from cameras, to duck her head when she smiled. Emma, meanwhile, seemed to be trying to compensate. Her smile became brighter, her posture more perfect, as if she could somehow balance out her sister's forced withdrawal. By 6th grade, they stopped inviting Lily to birthday parties. Emma continued, not because the kids didn't like her, but because Mom would call other parents and explain that Lily had special needs and might make other children uncomfortable. We were managing expectations. Janet defended. You were creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, I replied. Emma, what about teachers? Didn't anyone notice what was happening? Emma's expression darkened. Mrs. Rodriguez in 8th grade tried to intervene. She nominated Lily for student council because she was smart and kind. When Mom found out, she went to the school and had Lily removed from consideration. Why? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Because, Robert said matter-of-factly, it wouldn't be fair to put Lily in a position where her appearance would be a disadvantage. Student council members need to be presentable. I looked at the most recent photos. Lily, barely visible in group shots, always positioned at the back or side, while Emma occupied center stage in every image. But what struck me most was Emma's expression in the recent photos. The bright smile had been replaced by something that looked almost like guilt. Emma, you seem uncomfortable in these later photos, I observed. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Every compliment I get feels like an insult to Lily. Every achievement feels stolen. When I got accepted to early admission at Princeton, I almost didn't tell them because I knew they'd make a big deal about it while pretending. Lily's academic achievements don't matter. Lily got into Princeton too, she added quietly. I stared at the family. Lily, is this true? Lily nodded almost imperceptibly. Early admission, full scholarship. But they said I shouldn't go because I wouldn't fit in. She wouldn't be happy there, Janet said quickly. It's better for her to stay local, somewhere she's more comfortable. Somewhere she won't embarrass you, Emma said bitterly, looking at 16 years of systematic psychological abuse documented in school photos. I realized that the parents' surgical request wasn't a solution, it was the logical endpoint of years of teaching both daughters that physical appearance was the only thing that mattered, and that love was conditional on meeting their twisted standards of acceptability. After the consultation ended, with the Whitmores agreeing to consider my recommendations for family therapy, I immediately called Dr. Patricia Reeves, a child psychologist whose business card I kept in my desk for exactly these situations. Her expertise in family trauma and abuse cases had been invaluable in previous complex cases. Patricia, I need an emergency consultation, I said the moment she answered. I have a situation involving psychological abuse of minors, and I'm not sure how to proceed. How urgent are we talking? Her voice was immediately professional and concerned. Parents want me to surgically disfigure their healthy daughter to match their other daughter's birthmark so they can love them equally. The psychological evaluation I just conducted suggests years of systematic emotional abuse. There was a long pause. Sarah, please tell me you're exaggerating. I wish I were. Can you see me today? An hour later, I sat in Patricia's office, a cramped but comfortable space filled with soft lighting and children's artwork from her young patients. She listened without interruption as I recounted every detail of the consultation, referring frequently to my notes and the assessment form. This is textbook psychological abuse, Patricia said when I finished. What you're describing, the systematic destruction of one child's self-worth while creating unhealthy pressure on the other. It's a form of family dysfunction that can cause lasting trauma. But they seem so, normal, I said, well-dressed, articulate, financially stable. Patricia nodded grimly. Abusers often present well publicly. The fact that they're seeking surgical intervention tells me they've exhausted other forms of control and are escalating to physical harm. She pulled out a thick manual and flipped to a marked section. Look at this checklist for emotional abuse in children: systematic humiliation, isolation from peers, unrealistic expectations, favoritism towards siblings, conditional love based on appearance or performance. Every item described what I'd witnessed with the Whitmore family. Patricia, what's my legal obligation here? I asked. As a medical professional who has reason to suspect child abuse, you're a mandated reporter. You must file a report with Child Protective Services within 24 hours. But will they take it seriously? There's no physical abuse, no obvious neglect. Psychological abuse is just as damaging as physical abuse, sometimes more so because it's harder to detect and treat. Patricia leaned forward. Sarah, I've seen cases like this before. Parents who can't handle having a child who doesn't meet their expectations, so they try to either fix that child or break the other one down to the same level. She pulled out another file. 3 years ago, I had a case where parents wanted their son to have surgery to create a limb so he'd match his disabled brother. 2 years before that, parents wanted their daughter's hearing damage to match her deaf sister. My blood ran cold. What happened in those cases? In both instances, CPS intervened. The children were placed in protective custody temporarily, while the parents underwent intensive therapy. In the first case, the family was eventually reunified after 18 months of treatment. The second case resulted in permanent removal of the children. And the children. How did they recover? It's difficult, but possible with proper intervention. The key is catching it before permanent psychological damage is done. Based on what you've told me, Lily has been conditioned to believe she's worthless, while Emma carries enormous guilt about her natural advantages. Both need immediate therapeutic intervention. Patricia handed me a business card for a CPS caseworker she worked with regularly. Call Maria Santos. Tell her I referred you and that this is a priority case. She understands psychological abuse and won't dismiss it as just parenting. What should I tell the family if they call wanting to schedule the procedure? Stall them. Tell them you need time to research techniques, consult with colleagues, whatever, but do not agree to see them again without CPS involvement. As I prepared to leave, Patricia grabbed my arm. Sarah, you're probably the first person who's ever stood up for these girls. That consultation today, it might have saved their lives. Walking back to my car with Maria Santos's business card clutched in my hand, I felt the weight of responsibility settling on my shoulders. I'd handled medical emergencies before, but this was different. This was about saving 2 young souls from parents who'd forgotten that love wasn't supposed to hurt. The next morning, I sat in my office staring at CPS report form number 4847, the official document that would launch an investigation into the Whitmore family. My hands were steadier now than they'd been during the consultation, but the weight of what I was about to set in motion felt enormous. This is Dr. Sarah Mitchell, I said when Maria Santos answered her phone. Dr. Patricia Reeves referred me regarding a case of suspected psychological abuse involving twin 16-year-old girls. Dr. Reeves mentioned you might call. Maria's voice was crisp and professional. Can you give me the basics? I outlined the case, reading directly from my consultation notes and psychological assessment. Maria asked pointed questions about the family's behavior, the girls' responses, and my professional observations. Parents requesting surgical disfigurement of a healthy child definitely qualifies as attempted harm, Maria said. But I need to warn you, cases involving wealthy families are always more challenging. What do you mean? The Whitmores will have resources to fight this. Good lawyers, character witnesses, the ability to present themselves as concerned parents seeking medical help for their family. Psychological abuse is harder to prove than physical abuse, especially when the perpetrators are articulate and well-connected. My heart sank. So you won't investigate? I didn't say that. I'm saying we need to be thorough and strategic. Can you document everything from your consultation? Any recordings, notes, assessment forms? I have a complete psychological evaluation, and ... Actually, yes. My phone was recording the entire consultation. Perfect. That recording could be crucial evidence. I'll need copies of everything. Maria explained the next steps. She would conduct an initial assessment within 48 hours, which would include separate interviews with both daughters at school, away from parental influence. She'd also speak with teachers, counselors, and anyone else who regularly interacted with the family. What happens if the parents find out about the investigation before you can interview the girls? That's always a risk, Maria admitted. Wealthy families often have connections in various agencies. They might get advance warning, which gives them time to coach the children or file complaints against the reporting party. Against me, it's possible. They could claim you violated patient confidentiality. acted unprofessionally, or misinterpreted their request. That's why documentation is so important. After hanging up with Maria, I spent the morning organizing every piece of evidence from the consultation, the assessment form, my handwritten notes, the voice recording, even the crumpled tissue from my bathroom breakdown. Everything went into a file that I duplicated and stored in my office safe. My receptionist knocked on my door around noon. Dr. Mitchell, Mrs. Whitmore called, asking about scheduling the procedure. She seemed insistent. My blood pressure spiked. What did you tell her? That you were consulting with specialists and would get back to her within the week. Was that okay? Perfect. If she calls again, use the same response. I called Maria immediately. The mother is already pushing for scheduling. How quickly can you conduct the interviews? I'll go to their school tomorrow morning. Roosevelt Preparatory, right? I've worked with their counseling staff before. They're good at facilitating these conversations discreetly. What if the girls don't feel safe talking honestly? That's why we interviewed them separately and at school, away from parental pressure. Kids are more likely to open up. Plus, I'm trained to recognize signs of coaching or fear. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done before. I researched my own patients online. What I found about the Whitmore family painted a picture of wealth, social prominence, and carefully maintained public image. Robert Whitmore sat on 3 charitable boards and had donated significantly to children's hospitals. Janet Whitmore was involved in several society fundraisers and had been featured in magazine articles about successful parenting. The irony was sickening. Here was a family that publicly championed children's welfare while privately destroying their own daughter's emotional well-being. I also discovered that both girls attended Roosevelt Preparatory, one of Manhattan's most prestigious private schools. Their academic records, at least what was publicly available, showed Emma with numerous awards and recognitions. Lily's achievements were notably absent from the school's public communications, despite Emma's mention of her sister's exceptional academic performance. As I closed the files and prepared to leave for the day, I caught myself checking my phone repeatedly. Part of me expected an angry call from the Whitmores, a threat from their lawyers, or some sign that they'd discovered what I'd set in motion. Instead, there was silence. But I knew that silence wouldn't last long. Once Maria conducted her interviews, and the investigation became official, the Whitmore family's carefully constructed facade would begin to crumble, and they would fight back with everything they had. The next afternoon, my receptionist handed me a folded piece of paper that had been slipped under our office door during lunch. "Someone left this for you," she said. "No name, but it says urgent on the outside." The handwritten note, written in careful cursive on Roosevelt Preparatory letterhead, would become one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. It read, "Dr. Mitchell, I need to talk to you without my parents knowing. Please help us, Emma W." Below that was a phone number and instructions to text her after 3 p.m. when she'd be in study hall. I immediately texted the number. "This is Dr. Mitchell. I received your note. Are you and Lily safe?" Her response came within minutes. "For now, but they're getting suspicious. Can we meet somewhere private? I have things to tell you." We arranged to meet at a small cafe 3 blocks from her school at 4 p.m. I arrived early and chose a corner table where we could speak privately. Emma walked in precisely on time, looking over her shoulder, before sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't sure you'd want to get more involved. Emma, I want to help both you and Lily. That's why I'm here." She pulled out a small notebook and placed it on the table between us. "I've been documenting things for 3 years, ever since I realized that what our parents do to us isn't normal." The notebook was filled with dates, incidents, and quotes that painted a horrifying picture of systematic psychological abuse. Emma had recorded everything: the times her parents had hidden Lily's achievements, the cruel comments disguised as tough love, the way they used Emma's appearance as a weapon against her sister. "Look at this entry from last Christmas," Emma said, flipping to a specific page. "Mom bought me a beautiful dress for Christmas dinner and told Lily she couldn't come to the table because the photos wouldn't turn out well. Lily spent Christmas dinner in her room while they took family pictures with just me." She turned more pages, each entry more heartbreaking than the last. "Here's from my birthday party 2 years ago. They uninvited 3 of Lily's friends because they said having too many people would make Lily feel self-conscious. But really, they didn't want her in the party photos." "Emma, why did you start documenting this? because I knew someday I'd need proof. I knew that if anyone ever tried to help us, my parents would deny everything and make it seem like we were ungrateful or delusional. Her voice hardened with determination. They're very good at making themselves look like perfect parents. She flipped to more recent entries. 3 weeks ago, Lily won a poetry contest. The prize was having her poem published in a literary magazine and reading it at a ceremony. My parents told the school she was too sick to attend and declined the publication. Did they tell Lily why? They said public speaking would be traumatic for someone with her condition. But the real reason is that they didn't want people to see how talented she is. It might make them look bad for treating her the way they do. Emma's hands were shaking as she turned to the final entries. Dr. Mitchell, I need to tell you something else. The surgery they want you to do, it's not their first idea. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? Last year, they tried to convince me to get laser treatments to remove a small scar on my leg from a childhood accident. They said it would help me understand what Lily goes through with her treatments. You refused. But then they suggested that maybe I should accidentally get hurt so I'd have a matching scar. They even researched ways to create permanent facial scarring that would look natural. I felt sick. Emma, did they ever try to hurt you? Not directly, but they've been escalating. The surgical request to you was their latest attempt. If you had said yes, double quotes, she trailed off, unable to finish the thought. What about Lily? Does she know about your documentation? Emma shook her head. She's been so conditioned to believe she deserves the treatment she gets. She thinks I'm lucky and that our parents are just protecting her. She doesn't understand that they're destroying both of us in different ways. She closed the notebook and looked directly at me. Dr. Mitchell, I turn 18 in 6 months. The moment I do, I'm taking Lily and getting us both out of there. But I'm afraid that if they suspect what I'm planning, they'll do something desperate. First, like what? They've been talking about homeschooling us for our senior year. They say it's to protect Lily from social pressures, but really it's to isolate us completely. If they do that, no one will see us regularly enough to notice what's happening. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. Emma, I want you to know that you're not alone in this anymore. There are people working to help you, and Lily, her eyes filled with tears. Really, but I need you to promise me something. If you ever feel like you or Lily are in immediate danger, you call me immediately, day or night. As Emma gathered her notebook and prepared to leave, she looked at me with a mixture of hope and fear. Dr. Mitchell, do you think Lily will ever be okay? After everything they've done to her, with the right help and support, yes, but it's going to take time, and she's going to need people who believe in her worth, people like you. I've tried to protect her, but I feel like I've failed her. Emma, you're 16 years old, and you've been documenting abuse and protecting your sister. For 3 years, you haven't failed anyone. You're the bravest person I've ever met. After she left, I sat in the cafe for another hour, reading through the notebook she'd left with me. Each page was more evidence of a family systematically destroying their children's self-worth and mental health. But it was also evidence of Emma's incredible strength and love for her sister. That notebook would become crucial in the case against the Whitmores. But more than that, it was proof that even in the darkest situations, love and courage could survive. While Emma's notebook had provided devastating evidence of psychological abuse, it was Maria Santos who uncovered the financial documents that revealed the Whitmores' true motives. The insurance policy documents she discovered during her investigation would prove that this family's dysfunction ran even deeper than anyone had imagined. Sarah, we need to meet immediately. Maria called me at 7 a.m. the following morning. What I've found changes everything about this case. We met at a diner near the courthouse, where Maria spread out photocopied documents across our table, like pieces of a puzzle that formed a sickening picture. I ran a financial background check on the Whitmore family as part of the standard investigation. She began. What I found suggests their request for surgery wasn't just psychological abuse. It was part of a larger financial scheme. She pointed to the first document. Robert Whitmore's business, Whitmore Capital Management, has been hemorrhaging money for 2 years. He's facing 3 lawsuits from investors who claim he mismanaged their funds, and the SEC is investigating him for possible securities fraud. How much are we talking about? He's lost approximately $12 million of other people's money. His personal assets are leveraged to the maximum, and he's been borrowing against his home equity to cover basic expenses. Maria slid another document across the table. But here's where it gets really ugly. 3 years ago, the Whitmores took out substantial life insurance policies on both daughters. Emma's policy is for $2 million. Lily's is for $5 million. My stomach dropped. $5 million. Why the difference? That's what I wondered. So I dug deeper into the policy terms. She pointed to specific clauses highlighted in yellow. Lily's policy includes a rider for psychological distress leading to self-harm. If she were to hurt herself, the payout would be immediate and substantial. They're hoping she commits suicide. It gets worse. Look at this medical rider. Maria's finger traced another highlighted section. If Lily undergoes traumatic medical procedures resulting in psychological breakdown, the policy pays out an additional $2 million on top of the base amount. I felt physically ill. They wanted me to perform surgery on Emma, knowing it would traumatize both girls, potentially pushing Lily to self-harm. Yes, and if Emma developed psychological issues from being deliberately disfigured, her policy would pay out too. Maria pulled out another set of documents. I also found these disability benefit applications they filed last year. They're trying to get Lily classified as permanently disabled due to her birthmark, which would qualify her for government assistance that would be managed by her parents. But she's not disabled. She's academically gifted, socially capable when they're not interfering exactly, but they've been building a paper trail to suggest otherwise. Look at these medical reports. The documents showed a pattern of doctor shopping, with the Whitmores seeking multiple opinions about Lily's psychological disability related to her appearance. Several doctors had refused to classify her as disabled, but they'd found a few who were willing to document severe social anxiety and depression related to facial disfigurement. Maria, this is beyond psychological abuse. This is financial exploitation of their own children. It's worse than that. Look at this final document. She handed me a legal paper that made my hands shake. Robert Whitmore has been working with lawyers to have both daughters declared incompetent due to psychological instability. If successful, he would gain control of their trust funds, college funds, and any insurance payouts. How much money are we talking about? The girls have trust funds worth approximately $8 million each, established by their maternal grandmother. The funds are supposed to be released when they turn 18, but if they're declared incompetent, their father gets control. Exactly. And here's the kicker. He's been bleeding money from those accounts for months through management fees and medical expenses. He needs them declared incompetent before anyone notices the funds have been depleted. I stared at the documents, trying to process the full scope of the Whitmores' exploitation. So the surgery request wasn't just about control or twisted parenting. It was part of a plan to destroy both girls psychologically so he could steal their money. And if one or both of them didn't survive the psychological trauma, the insurance payouts would solve his financial problems permanently. Maria gathered the documents back into a folder. Sarah, what you reported as psychological abuse was actually attempted financial murder. These parents were systematically destroying their daughter's mental health for money. What happens now? Now this becomes a criminal investigation. I'm referring this to the DA's office immediately. We're talking about child endangerment, financial exploitation, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit harm against minors. As we prepared to leave the diner, Maria handed me copies of all the documents. Keep these safe. And Sarah, that consultation where you refused to perform the surgery, you literally saved those girls' lives. If you had agreed to do it, we might be looking at a double suicide within months. Walking back to my car, I felt the full weight of how close Emma and Lily had come to becoming victims of their parents' greed. The Whitmores hadn't just been bad parents, they'd been predators, systematically destroying their own children for financial gain. The insurance documents in my hands were more than evidence of a crime. They were proof that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect children are the ones they most need protection from. 2 days after Maria's devastating financial revelations, I received a formal letter from the New York State Medical Ethics Board, requesting my full cooperation in their investigation of the Whitmore case. The official letterhead and serious tone of the document marked a turning point. This was no longer just a family dispute, but a case that would set precedents for medical ethics and child protection. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the board's chief investigator, called me within hours of sending the letter. Dr. Mitchell, we've reviewed your report about the Whitmore family consultation. We need to understand exactly what transpired and how you handled the situation. Am I being investigated for wrongdoing? I asked, though I felt confident in my Actions, on the contrary, your refusal to perform the requested procedure and your subsequent reporting to CPS appears to be textbook ethical behavior. We're investigating whether there are systemic issues we need to address to prevent similar cases. Dr. Chun explained that they were working closely with CPS and the DAS office to build a comprehensive case. We're documenting this for several reasons. First, to support the criminal case against the parents. Second, to create protocols for identifying similar requests in the future. And third, to provide guidance for other medical professionals who might face comparable situations. She scheduled a formal interview for the following week, during which I would present all my documentation and walk through my decision-making process step by step. Dr. Mitchell, I want you to know that what you did, refusing an unethical procedure and reporting suspected abuse, represents the highest standards of medical practice. Meanwhile, the case was gaining momentum on multiple fronts. Maria Santos had coordinated with school officials to ensure the twins' safety during the investigation. Roosevelt Preparatory's guidance counselor, Mrs. Sarah Henderson, had been quietly monitoring both girls for months and was eager to contribute to the case. I've been worried about those girls for years, Mrs. Henderson told me during a conference call with Maria. Emma is obviously brilliant, but she carries enormous guilt about her achievements. Lily is equally gifted, but she's been systematically conditioned to believe she's worthless. Mrs. Henderson provided academic records that painted a stark picture of the parents' favoritism. Emma's achievements were prominently displayed in school communications and parent newsletters. Lily's identical academic success was never mentioned publicly, despite her maintaining the same 4.0 GPA and winning multiple academic competitions. The disparity in how the parents respond to their achievements is dramatic, Mrs. Henderson explained. When Emma wins an award, both parents attend the ceremony and take photos. When Lily wins something, they either don't attend or they ask us not to include her name in public announcements. She also revealed something that chilled me. Last month, Mrs. Whitmore asked me to recommend that Lily be moved to less challenging classes because the stress of academic competition was unhealthy for someone with her challenges. When I pointed out that Lily was excelling academically, she said it was unrealistic to expect her to maintain high standards given her limitations. The legal team assigned to the case was equally thorough. Assistant DA Jennifer Walsh explained that they were building charges on multiple fronts: child endangerment, financial exploitation, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit harm against minors. The insurance policies are the smoking gun, she told me during a pre-testimony meeting. Combined with the financial records showing Mr. Whitmore's business failures and the evidence of systematic psychological abuse, we have a strong case for attempted financial exploitation of minors. Dr. Patricia Reeves, the child psychologist who had first helped me understand the severity of the abuse, was conducting comprehensive psychological evaluations of both twins. The damage is significant but not irreversible, she reported. Emma shows signs of survivor guilt and anxiety disorder. Lily exhibits classic symptoms of long-term psychological abuse: depression, learned helplessness, and severely damaged self-esteem. What's their prognosis? I asked. With proper intervention and removal from the abusive environment, both girls can recover. Emma's protective instincts and documentation of the abuse actually demonstrate remarkable resilience. Lily will need more intensive therapy, but she's young enough that we can help her rebuild her sense of self. The most challenging aspect of building the case was ensuring the twins' safety while gathering evidence. The Whitmores had grown suspicious after my delay in scheduling their requested procedure and had become increasingly controlling of their daughter's activities. They've pulled both girls out of extracurricular activities, Maria reported during one of our weekly updates. Emma was supposed to attend a college prep program this weekend, but they canceled it, saying Lily felt left out because she wasn't invited. Are they trying to isolate them completely? It looks that way. They've also hired a private tutor and are discussing homeschooling for the remainder of the school year. If they succeed in removing the girls from school, we'll lose our primary way of monitoring their welfare. This revelation added urgency to our timeline. We needed to act before the parents could completely isolate their daughters and potentially escalate their abuse. The medical ethics board letter became a symbol of institutional support for doing the right thing. even when it was difficult. Dr. Chun had assured me that my case would be used to train other medical professionals about recognizing and reporting family abuse disguised as medical requests. Dr. Mitchell, she said during our final preparation meeting, your refusal to perform this procedure and your subsequent reporting may have saved these girls' lives. More than that, it's going to help us protect other children whose parents might make similar requests in the future. As we prepared for the formal confrontation with the Whitmore parents, I felt the weight of responsibility, but also the strength that comes from knowing you're not alone. The medical community, child protection services, law enforcement, and the school system were all working together to protect Emma and Lily. The case had grown far beyond a simple consultation gone wrong. It had become a test of all the systems designed to protect children from the people who should love them most. The security camera footage from the Whitmore residence on the morning of November 15th would later become key evidence in their criminal trial. What it captured was a family's carefully constructed facade crumbling in real time as CPS, accompanied by police officers, arrived to conduct an emergency welfare check on Emma and Lily. I wasn't present for the confrontation, but Maria Santos called me immediately afterward to describe what had transpired. Sarah, you need to hear this. The parents' reaction when we showed up was illuminating. The footage, which I would later view during court proceedings, showed Robert Whitmore answering the door in a silk bathrobe at 8 a.m., clearly not expecting visitors. His expression shifted from confusion to anger to barely controlled rage as Maria identified herself and explained the purpose of their visit. This is harassment. Robert's voice was clearly audible on the recording. We're a respected family. My wife serves on 3 charitable boards, and I've donated millions to children's causes. Mr. Whitmore, we have credible reports of psychological abuse and financial exploitation involving your daughters. Maria replied calmly. We need to speak with Emma and Lily privately. Janet Whitmore appeared in the background, her perfectly styled hair and makeup suggesting she'd been awake for hours. This is ridiculous. Our daughters are well cared for, well educated, and want for nothing. Where are Emma and Lily now? Maria asked. There was a pause on the recording, one that would later prove significant. They're not here, Janet said. They went to stay with my sister in Connecticut for a few days. When did they leave? Another pause. Yesterday evening. The police officer stepped forward. Ma'am, we've verified that both girls attended school yesterday until 3 p.m. Their teachers confirmed they were planning to attend drama club after school. When did you pick them up? Robert's composure began to crack. I don't have to answer these questions without a lawyer present. You're not under arrest, sir, the officer replied. But we do need to verify the welfare of 2 minor children. If you can't produce them, we'll need to escalate this situation. What happened next, according to Maria, revealed the parents' true nature. Janet Whitmore's carefully maintained facade shattered completely. This is about that surgeon, isn't it? She screamed. That woman had no right to interfere with our family decisions. What surgeon? Maria asked, though of course she knew. Dr. Mitchell. We went to her for help with our daughter's situation, and instead of helping us, she's turned everyone against us. Robert tried to grab his wife's arm to quiet her, but she shook him off. Do you know what we've sacrificed for those girls? The opportunities we've given up because we can't take Lily anywhere without people staring. The social events we've missed because she makes everyone uncomfortable. The camera captured Robert's face going pale as his wife continued her tirade. We found a solution that would have helped everyone, and that doctor refused to help us. What solution was that, Mrs. Whitmore? Maria pressed. To make them equal. To give Emma the same challenges that Lily faces so we could finally treat them fairly. Even on the grainy security footage, Maria told me, you could see the moment when both parents realized what Janet had just admitted. Robert stepped in front of his wife, but the damage was done. I want to see both girls immediately, Maria stated firmly. If they're not produced within the hour, we'll be obtaining an emergency court order and issuing an Amber Alert. The footage showed Robert and Janet whispering frantically before Robert reluctantly led the officers upstairs. In the girls' shared bedroom, they found both Emma and Lily sitting on Emma's bed, fully dressed as if they'd been waiting. Emma stood up immediately when the officers entered. Are you here to help us? She asked, her voice steady, despite the circumstances. Lily remained seated, staring at her hands. When Maria knelt down to speak with her, she finally looked up with eyes that Maria described as the saddest I've ever seen. Lily, Are you okay? Have your parents hurt you, or threatened to hurt you? They don't hit us, Lily whispered. They just ... They just want to fix me. There's nothing wrong with you that needs fixing, Maria said gently. Emma moved protectively, closer to her sister. We heard them talking last night. They were planning to take us somewhere we couldn't contact anyone. They said people were trying to poison our minds against them. The most chilling moment of the footage, according to Maria, came when the parents were asked to step outside while the girls were interviewed. Robert turned back toward the camera and said, "This is going to destroy our family. I hope you're satisfied." But it was Janet's response that truly revealed their mindset. Those girls don't understand how much we've sacrificed for them. If they can't appreciate what we're trying to do, maybe they deserve whatever happens to them. Within 2 hours, both Emma and Lily were placed in emergency protective custody. The security footage from that morning would become Exhibit A in demonstrating the parents' complete lack of empathy for their daughters and their willingness to blame everyone else for their abusive behavior. When Maria called to update me, her voice was shaken. "Sarah, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never seen parents so completely disconnected from their children's well-being. They genuinely believe they're the victims in this situation. How are the girls?" Emma is relieved but worried about Lily. Lily is confused and scared, but she's starting to understand that what happened to her wasn't normal or her fault. The confrontation had finally brought the Whitmore family's dysfunction into the light, captured forever on video as evidence of how far some parents will go to avoid taking responsibility for the harm they cause their own children. The restraining order papers that arrived at my office 3 days after the twins were placed in protective custody carried the weight of legal protection, but they also marked the beginning of a media storm that would change my life forever. The document, signed by Judge Patricia Morrison, prohibited Robert and Janet Whitmore from contacting me, my staff, or coming within 500 feet of my practice. Dr. Mitchell, my attorney, called that same morning. "You need to prepare for media attention. Someone leaked the story to the press." By noon, news vans were parked outside my clinic. The headline on Channel 7 News read, "Manhattan Surgeon Saves Twins from Parents' Horrific Plan." My phone hadn't stopped ringing since the story broke. The media coverage was overwhelmingly supportive, but it brought unwanted scrutiny to every aspect of my practice and personal life. Reporters wanted to know about my background, my motivations, my other cases. Some painted me as a hero. Others questioned whether I had overstepped professional boundaries by reporting the family. Dr. Mitchell refused to perform a procedure that would have permanently disfigured a healthy child. The Medical Ethics Board's statement read, "Her actions represent the highest standards of medical practice and child advocacy." The New York Medical Society issued a similar statement. And by the end of the week, I'd received calls from colleagues across the country expressing support. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez from Children's Hospital, Los Angeles, left a particularly moving message. "What you did takes courage that every doctor should have, but not every doctor finds when they need it." But the real vindication came from an unexpected source. 3 other surgeons contacted me privately to report similar consultations. They'd had over the years parents requesting procedures to harm healthy children in order to help siblings or solve family dynamics. I had a case 2 years ago. Dr. Michael Chen from Boston told me during a confidential call, parents wanted me to break their son's leg so it would heal improperly and give him a limp to match his brother's disability. I refused, but I didn't report it. After seeing your case, I wish I had. Meanwhile, Emma and Lily were adjusting to life in protective custody with the Morrison family, experienced foster parents who specialized in sibling groups and trauma cases. Maria Santos provided regular updates on their progress. "Emma is doing better than expected," Maria reported during our weekly check-in. "She's been seeing Dr. Reeves for therapy and is starting to process the guilt she's carried about her parents' treatment of Lily. And Lily, she's struggling more, which is expected. 16 years of being told you're worthless doesn't disappear overnight, but she's starting to show glimpses of the confident child she was before her parents destroyed herself." The foster family, Linda and David Morrison, had been carefully selected. Linda was a retired school counselor, and David was a pediatric social worker. They understood trauma and knew how to create an environment where healing could begin. "The girls share a room by choice," Linda told me when I called to check on them. "Emma still feels responsible for protecting Lily, but we're helping her understand that's not her job anymore." The most encouraging news came a week later. Lily smiled. "Today," Maria told me, her voice filled with emotion, a real smile, not the forced one she's been wearing for years. It happened when Linda was helping her with a college application essay about overcoming challenges. The restraining order that had initially felt like protection became something more. It was a legal barrier between the twins and the people who had spent 16 years systematically destroying their sense of self-worth. But more than that, it represented the moment when the justice system finally acknowledged that what the Whitmores had done to their daughters was a crime. Public support continued to pour in. Letters arrived at my office from parents, medical professionals, and abuse survivors sharing their own stories and thanking me for taking a stand. One letter particularly moved me, from a woman whose parents had convinced multiple doctors to perform unnecessary surgeries on her as a child to fix perceived flaws. "You saved those girls from years of trauma that I had to endure," she wrote. "Thank you for being the doctor I needed but never found." The medical community's response was equally supportive. The American Society of Plastic Surgeons invited me to speak at their annual conference about recognizing and reporting child abuse disguised as medical requests. Medical schools began incorporating the Whitmore case into their ethics curricula. But perhaps the most meaningful validation came from an unexpected source of their families who had been touched by similar situations. A mother from Texas called to tell me that my case had given her the courage to report her ex-husband's attempts to convince doctors to classify their autistic son as severely disabled to gain access to his trust fund. As the immediate aftermath settled into a new routine, I realized that what had started as one of the worst consultations of my career had become something larger, a catalyst for protecting other children and holding the medical community accountable for recognizing abuse in all its forms. The restraining order papers on my desk were more than just legal protection. They were proof that sometimes doing the right thing, even when it's difficult and complicated, creates ripples that extend far beyond what you can see in the moment. 6 months after being placed in protective custody, I received a photograph that would become one of my most treasured possessions. It showed Lily Whitmore laughing genuinely, uninhibitedly laughing during a poetry reading at a local community center. Linda Morrison had captured the moment and sent it to me with a note. "This is the first time we've seen her truly happy." The transformation in both girls during their first months with the Morrison family was remarkable but gradual. Dr. Patricia Reeves documented their progress meticulously, not just for therapeutic purposes but to demonstrate the long-term effects of psychological abuse and the possibility of recovery. "Emma is making excellent progress," Dr. Reeves told me during one of our monthly consultations. "She's learning to separate her identity from her role as Lily's protector. It's challenging for her because that role has been central to who she is for so long." Emma had initially struggled with what Dr. Reeves termed survivor guilt syndrome, feeling responsible for having advantages that Lily didn't have, and guilty about the relief she felt being away from her parents. She kept asking me if she was a bad daughter for feeling happy that they couldn't hurt Lily anymore, Dr. Reeves explained. But Emma's natural resilience was emerging. She'd thrown herself into her studies with renewed focus, and for the first time in years, she was allowing herself to celebrate her achievements without immediately worrying about how they might affect Lily. Emma got accepted to Princeton with a full scholarship, Linda Morrison called to tell me proudly. When the acceptance letter arrived, instead of hiding it like she would have before, she ran straight to Lily to share the news. And Lily's reaction was pure joy for her sister. Lily's recovery was more complex but equally inspiring. The girl who had been conditioned to believe she was worthless was slowly discovering her own remarkable capabilities. "She's been attending a support group for teenagers with facial differences," Dr. Reeves reported. "Initially, she just listened, but last week she shared her poetry with the group. Everyone was amazed by her talent. The poetry had become Lily's primary form of emotional expression." Linda Morrison, with her background in education, recognized Lily's exceptional literary gifts and encouraged her to submit work to national competitions. "Her writing is mature beyond her years," Linda told me. "She has this ability to articulate complex emotions about identity and self-worth that could help other young people facing similar challenges." One of Lily's poems, titled Journey, had been selected for publication in a national anthology of teen writing. The poem traced the evolution of how she viewed her birthmark from her childhood friend Scarlett to a source of shame, and finally to acceptance as part of her unique identity. "The most beautiful part," Linda explained, "is that she's reclaimed the name Scarlett. She talks to her birthmark again, but now it's about self-acceptance rather than childhood fantasy. Emma's decision to pursue pre-medicine had crystallized during her time in foster care. She wants to become a pediatric psychiatrist, Dr. Reeves told me. She says she wants to help children who've experienced trauma like she and Lily did. Her application essays are incredibly powerful. She writes about turning her experiences into a mission to help others. The sisters' relationship was also healing. For the first time in years, they could interact without the weight of their parents' twisted dynamics affecting every conversation. They're learning to be sisters instead of survivor and protector, Linda observed. They laugh together now. They argue about normal teenage things. They support each other's dreams without guilt or competition. Lily had also made the decision to keep the last name Whitmore, despite everything. She told me that changing her name would feel like letting her parents define her identity, Dr. Reeves explained. She wants to reclaim the name and make it represent something positive. Both girls were excelling academically in ways that surprised even their teachers. When you remove the psychological abuse and constant stress, their natural intelligence can flourish, their foster father David Morrison observed. Emma's grades have actually improved, which we didn't think was possible since she was already an A student. And Lily is discovering academic confidence she never knew she had. Lily had also begun speaking publicly about her experiences, starting with small groups at the community center and gradually building to larger audiences. She has this quiet strength when she speaks, Linda told me. She doesn't blame or express anger, she just tells her truth in a way that helps other people understand that appearances don't define worth. The most encouraging development was Lily's decision to undergo laser treatment for her birthmark, not because she was ashamed of it, but because she wanted to make the choice for herself. For the first time, this is her decision, not something being imposed on her, Dr. Reeves explained. Whether she decides to continue the treatments or not, the important thing is that she's making the choice. The photograph of Lily's genuine smile became more than just documentation of her recovery. It was proof that even after years of systematic psychological abuse, the human spirit could heal, grow, and find joy again. Both twins were not just surviving their trauma, they were transforming it into strength that would help them build meaningful, authentic lives. The court judgment document, bearing the seal of the New York State Supreme Court, arrived at my office on a gray morning in March, 8 months after I first met the Whitmore family. The official ruling represented not just justice for Emma and Lily, but a landmark case that would influence how the legal system handles psychological abuse and financial exploitation of children. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Walsh called me immediately after the verdict was announced. "Sarah, we got them on all counts." Robert Whitmore was convicted of child endangerment, financial exploitation of minors, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit harm against children. Janet was convicted on the child endangerment and conspiracy charges. The trial had been emotionally devastating, but legally decisive. Over 3 weeks, the prosecution had methodically presented evidence that painted a picture of systematic abuse spanning 16 years. Emma's notebook, the insurance documents, the security footage from the confrontation, my consultation notes, and the voice recording had all played crucial roles in securing convictions. The jury deliberated for only 4 hours. Jennifer continued. The evidence was overwhelming, but it was Emma's testimony that really sealed their fate. Emma had chosen to testify despite not being required to do so. At 17, she spoke with a composure that amazed everyone in the courtroom. She was calm, articulate, and devastating, Jennifer told me. She walked the jury through years of psychological manipulation with specific examples and dates. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Emma's testimony had been particularly powerful when she described the moment she realized her parents' request for surgery wasn't about helping Lily. "I knew they didn't really love either of us the way parents should," she had told the jury. "But I didn't understand until Dr. Mitchell's office that they were willing to destroy us both for money." Lily had also testified, though her portion was conducted privately with only the judge, attorneys, and court reporter present, due to her age and trauma history. She was brave beyond her years, Jennifer said. She told the truth about how their treatment made her feel worthless and how she had started believing she deserved it. The defense had attempted to portray the Whitmores as loving parents who had made poor decisions under financial stress. Robert's attorney argued that the surgery request was a misguided attempt to help their daughters, not an effort to harm them. Janet's lawyer claimed she was manipulated by her husband and was also a victim of his schemes. but the evidence was too comprehensive to explain away. Dr. Patricia Reeves had testified about the systematic nature of the psychological abuse and its devastating effects on both children. The financial expert had walked the jury through Robert's business failures and the suspicious timing of the insurance policies. Most damning of all was the security footage showing Janet's admission that the daughters deserved whatever happens to them if they couldn't appreciate their parents' efforts. The sentences reflected the severity of the crimes. Robert Whitmore received 12 years in prison, 8 for financial exploitation and conspiracy, for 4 child endangerment. Janet received 6 years, with the possibility of parole after 4 if she completed a comprehensive psychological treatment program. The judge was particularly harsh in her sentencing remarks. Jennifer told me, she said that parents who exploit their own children for financial gain represent a betrayal of the most fundamental human trust and deserve the full weight of legal consequences. Judge Morrison had also ordered the Whitmores to pay full restitution for the therapy and medical costs associated with treating the psychological damage they had inflicted on their daughters. Additionally, they were required to surrender all rights to the girls' trust funds and any future inheritance. The case had attracted national attention, with legal experts calling it a watershed moment for recognizing psychological abuse as a serious crime worthy of significant punishment. This case establishes important precedents, Jennifer explained. It shows that systematic psychological abuse of children is just as serious as physical abuse, and that financial exploitation of minors will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Several other families had come forward during the trial, with similar stories, leading to additional investigations. Your case opened a floodgate, Jennifer told me. We're currently investigating 3 other families where parents have tried to use medical procedures to exploit or control their children. The conviction also had implications for the medical community. The American Medical Association had issued new guidelines for identifying and reporting suspected child abuse disguised as medical requests. My case was being used in medical schools across the country to train future doctors about recognizing red flags in family dynamics. But beyond the legal implications, the verdict provided something invaluable for Emma and Lily: validation that what had happened to them was wrong, criminal, and not their fault. Both girls cried when I called to tell them about the convictions, Jennifer said, not from sadness, but from relief. For the first time, an official authority had confirmed that their parents' treatment of them was unacceptable. The court judgment document I held in my hands was more than just a legal ruling. It was official recognition that children have the right to be loved unconditionally, to be protected from exploitation, and to be valued for who they are rather than how they might benefit their parents' financial or emotional needs. Justice had been served, but more importantly, 2 remarkable young women were finally free to build lives based on their own choices, rather than their parents' twisted expectations. The thank you card that arrived at my office 2 years after the trial was handwritten, in Emma's careful script on Princeton University letterhead. Inside, her words captured not just gratitude, but the profound transformation that had taken place in both twins' lives since that terrible consultation in my office. Dr. Mitchell, the card read, I wanted you to know that Lily and I are thriving. We both think of you as the person who gave us our lives back. Thank you for seeing us when our own parents couldn't. The card included an update on both girls' remarkable progress. Emma was excelling in her pre-med studies and had been accepted into a summer research program focusing on childhood trauma and resilience. Lily had received a full scholarship to NYU for creative writing and was working on a memoir about recovering from psychological abuse. But it was what Emma shared about their relationship that moved me most. Lily and I are finally just sisters. We laugh together, argue about stupid things, and support each other's dreams without feeling guilty about our own success. We're learning what normal family love looks like through the Morrisons, and we're both healing in ways we didn't know were possible. Dr. Patricia Reeves had continued working with both girls throughout their recovery, documenting their progress for what would become a landmark study on resilience after childhood psychological abuse. Both girls demonstrate remarkable healing capacity, she told me during one of our periodic check-ins. Emma has learned to pursue her own goals without feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness. Lily has developed a strong sense of self-worth that's independent of external validation. The transformation in Lily was particularly striking. The withdrawn, damaged girl I'd met in my office had become a confident young woman, who spoke publicly about her experiences to help other abuse survivors. Her poetry had been published in several national magazines, and she'd become an advocate for children with facial differences. She's completely reframed her relationship with her birthmark, Dr. Reeves explained. Instead of seeing it as a flaw that makes her unlovable, she now views it as part of her unique identity and a symbol of her survival. Lily had chosen to continue laser treatments, but on her own terms and timeline. The important thing is that every decision is hers, Linda Morrison had told me. She's not trying to fix herself to meet someone else's standards. She's making choices about her own body and appearance based on what makes her feel confident and authentic. The Morrison family had formally adopted both girls after their 18th birthdays, giving them the family stability they'd never experienced. We asked them if they wanted to change their last names. Linda shared with me. Both chose to keep Whitmore, but add Morrison as a second middle name. They said they wanted to honor both their survival and their healing. Emma's academic success had continued to flourish. She'd been inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, served as president of the Pre-Med Honor Society, and had already been accepted to 3 top medical schools for the following year. But more importantly, she'd learned to celebrate her achievements without guilt. For the first time in her life, Emma can be proud of her accomplishments without worrying that she's somehow taking something away from Lily, Dr. Reeves observed. That's a huge breakthrough for someone who spent 16 years believing her success was harmful to her sister. Both girls had also developed new relationships and friendships. Emma was dating a classmate from her organic chemistry class, while Lily had connected with other young writers and activists. They're learning what healthy relationships look like, Linda Morrison told me. Both of them are drawn to people who appreciate their intelligence, kindness, and strength rather than just their appearance. The impact of their healing extended beyond their personal lives. Emma had become involved in advocacy work, speaking at medical conferences about recognizing child abuse from the patient's perspective. Lily's writing and speaking engagements had helped other young people understand that survival of abuse wasn't just about getting away from harmful situations. It was about rebuilding your sense of self-worth. They've both turned their trauma into purpose, Dr. Reeves noted. Emma wants to become a pediatric psychiatrist specifically to help children who've experienced family trauma. Lily uses her writing and speaking to help other abuse survivors understand that healing is possible. Perhaps most remarkably, both girls had developed the ability to set healthy boundaries and advocate for themselves, skills that had been systematically undermined by their parents' manipulation. They've learned to say no to requests that don't serve their well-being, Linda Morrison observed. That's something many adults never learn, but these girls mastered it before age 20. The thank you card from Emma became more than just an update on their progress. It was tangible proof that children can recover from even severe psychological abuse when they receive proper support, validation, and unconditional love. Their transformation from damaged, controlled victims to thriving, independent young women demonstrated the remarkable resilience of the human spirit when given the chance to heal. That as I placed Emma's card in the special folder I kept with updates about the twins, I reflected on how their courage to survive and heal had inspired not just their own recovery, but had created ripple effects that would protect other children for years to come. 5 years after that horrific consultation, I stood in the audience at Columbia University's medical school graduation ceremony, watching Emma Whitmore Morrison receive her Doctor of Medicine degree. The photograph I took of her and Lily embracing after the ceremony, both radiant with joy and pride, it's framed on my office desk as a testament to the power of courage, intervention, and healing. Emma had graduated summa cum laude and was beginning her residency in pediatric psychiatry at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, one of the most competitive programs in the country. Her residency application essay, which she had shared with me, focused on using her own experiences with family trauma to help other children heal from psychological abuse. I understand what it feels like to be trapped in a family system that doesn't see your worth, she had written. I want to be the doctor who helps children recognize their own value when the people who should love them most have tried to convince them they have none. Lily, now 21, had just published her memoir, Scarlet's Song, Healing from Invisible Wounds, which had become a bestseller and was being adapted into a documentary about psychological abuse recovery. She'd graduated from NYU with highest honors and was working as a counselor for at-risk youth while pursuing her MFA in creative writing. The most beautiful part, Linda Morrison told me at the graduation celebration, is watching them support each other's dreams without any of the old guilt or competition. They've become the sisters they were always meant to be. The impact of their case had extended far beyond their personal healing. The protocols I'd helped develop for identifying suspected child abuse in medical settings had been adopted by hospitals across the country. The Whitmore guidelines, as they'd become known, had led to the identification and intervention in dozens of similar cases. Your refusal to perform that surgery started a revolution in how the medical community recognizes family abuse. Dr. Elizabeth Chen from the Medical Ethics Board told me during a recent conference, "We've trained thousands of healthcare providers to look for the warning signs you identified." The twins had also become advocates for legislative change. Emma had testified before Congress about the need for stronger laws protecting children from psychological abuse, while Lily had worked with lawmakers to improve mental health services for abuse survivors. What makes their advocacy so powerful, Dr. Patricia Reeves observed, is that they speak from a place of healing rather than victimhood. They show other survivors that recovery is possible and that trauma can be transformed into purpose. Both young women had also developed thriving, personal lives. Emma was engaged to her medical school classmate, a pediatric surgeon who shared her passion for helping children. Lily was in a committed relationship with a fellow writer who encouraged her advocacy work and understood her need to help other survivors. They've learned to choose partners who see their strength, not their scars. Linda Morrison noted with pride, they're both in relationships built on mutual respect and genuine love, the kind of love they should have received from their parents. The transformation in my own practice had been equally significant. I'd developed comprehensive screening procedures for all new patients, particularly those involving family dynamics and pediatric cases. My staff had been trained to recognize warning signs of abuse, and we'd created partnerships with social services and mental health professionals to ensure comprehensive support for at-risk families. Dr. Mitchell's office has become a model for ethical medical practice. The American Medical Association had noted in a recent journal article about the case, her willingness to prioritize patient welfare over financial gain and to take difficult stands when necessary represents the highest ideals of medical practice. But perhaps the most meaningful change was personal. The Whitmore case had reminded me why I became a doctor in the first place, not to enhance beauty or generate revenue, but to heal, protect, and improve lives. Every consultation now began with the same internal question: how can I truly help this person become their healthiest, most authentic self? As I looked at the graduation photo of Emma and Lily, I reflected on the journey from that terrible Tuesday morning when a family walked into my office with an unspeakable request. Their courage to survive, heal, and transform their trauma into a force for protecting other children had created ripple effects that would continue for generations. The case had taught me that sometimes the most important medical intervention isn't a surgery or procedure, it's the willingness to see a patient's true needs and the courage to act when those needs require protection rather than treatment. Today, both Emma and Lily are thriving professionals who use their experiences to help others heal. Emma works with children who've experienced family trauma, helping them rebuild their sense of self. Lily continues writing and speaking, sharing her story to help other survivors understand that healing is possible and that their experiences can become sources of strength rather than shame. Their story isn't just about surviving abuse, it's about the power of intervention, the importance of speaking up for those who can't speak for themselves, and the remarkable resilience of the human spirit when given the chance to heal. Every day, I'm reminded that the single most important decision I've made in my medical career was saying no to a procedure that would have destroyed two beautiful souls, and yes to protecting them instead. Sometimes the greatest surgery you can perform is the one you refuse to do. If you're watching this and you know a child who might be experiencing abuse, psychological, physical, or emotional, please speak up, be their advocate. Sometimes one person's courage to intervene can change a life forever. Don't wait for someone else to help. Be the person who sees their worth when others can't.